Alrighty, I'm going to try to make this not incredibly long. We'll see how this goes. My name is Thomas Mergel, and today's best of list will be the top 25 death metal records of 2015. Now, let's see here. I've had hundreds of submissions. I listened to hundreds of albums this past year. Probably the most I've ever done. 2014 was a lot. 2015 was an overload. I enjoyed every single thing. Well, maybe not everything, but I enjoy just the amount of content I get and all the choices I have. And this year has been a phenomenal year for metal on all fronts. Death metal saw a return to form with some heavy-hitting acts such as Hate Eternal and Nile, and then we also managed to find some great newcomers along the way who blew the minds and anuses of those who dare listen to the material. This list is subjective and of course all my opinion. However, this is a list I back 100%. Something I would hand over to someone and proudly say, check these 25 albums out if you want the best and heaviest death metal on the market right now. And without further ado, let's get right into this list, shall we? Now, number 25, we have Morbid Vomit's Doctrine of Violence on Ranka Castanas Records, and I think this is it's a really good album. The previous heavy-hitting compilation album, Return to the Crypts, got me massively addicted and hooked onto this band. Blasthead Records handled that disc, but the band changed labels for the first full length, yet they didn't change anything about their punishing Swedish death metal sound. Morbid Vomit is the best when it comes to this niche genre of death metal, as I think they outperform Bloodbath and Entrails' last albums, which is no easy task. Now, number 2, we have Abiotic's Casuistry. Metal Blade Records, fantastic death metal that successfully blends everything you love about deathcore, brutal death metal, progressive death metal, and technical death metal. There is a lot going on here, but the best thing about it is that it's legible. You can understand it. It's easier to digest than their debut album, Symbiosis. The maturity in the songwriting really showcases their talented ways, and not only can they just turn heads with their swift musicianship, but they can melt those faces clean off. At number 23, we have Analepsy, Dehumanization by Supremacy. Vomit Your Shirt / Rotten Cemetery. That's where you can get the album. Brutal death metal that is just satisfying and heavy as all hell. There is nothing gimmicky about this slamming shit. If you are expecting quirky, funny dubs followed by goofball growls, then you will be sorely mistaken, or you are sorely mistaken. This is crotch-ripping, neck-snapping stuff. This is purely for those who want mindlessly aggressive music, which is okay in my book, and that's why they earned the 23rd spot. Number 22, we have Dystrophy with Wretched Host. It's an independent release, but then they later on got signed by Self-Made God. So find it there. I am sure this will be one of those albums that you definitely skipped or overlooked. Well, go back and listen to this immediately. It's chunky, thick, massive riffs are constantly pouring out of this release, and its brand of technical and progressive madness often reminds me of a more focused Gorguts in many ways. This band has big-time talent and wonderful songwriting skills, which makes this album just perfect for those who want a good and smart death metal album. Number 21, we have the Black Dahlia Murder Abysmal, Metal Blade Records. Finally, I get what this band is doing. Slowly, over a long period of time, this band has just been grabbing at me, longing for me to become a fan of their brand of death metal, and Abysmal finally grabbed me, and I enjoyed every single song on this album. Hellish metal flows as the screams are the best they've ever been. One of the best things about this band is their technical ability as well as their classical ability when creating such a heavy sound. This atmosphere is great as well as just simply catching. It's crazy how catchy the songs are. This will easily get stuck in your head and you will be playing air guitar without a doubt. Number 20, we have Inquisious, I'm going to say this wrong, Iniquitous Deeds, Incessant Hallucinations on New Standard Elite. This debut brutal death release was something that featured masterful use of chunky riffing as well as fantastically timed technical ability. Little tricks and brutal talent made this highly catchy and definitely a neck-snapping endeavor. Make sure you check that out. One of the better brutal death metal albums of the year. Number 19, we have Rivers of Nihil, Monarchy on Metal Blade Records. Rivers of Nihil, kind of like the Black Dahlia Murder, really didn't have my full attention until this newest album. And boy, Rivers of Nihil's Monarchy is something special to behold. A technical death metal album that definitely plays out like a fine-tuned machine of progressive death. It's mixed and mastered well, and it made to be very listenable and enjoyable, much like Job for a Cowboy did with Sun Eater. Well, let's hope Rivers actually keeps touring and creating new music. Monarchy was something special, and it put Rivers of Nihil on the map. Really good album. Check them out. Number 18, we have Parasitic Ejaculations, Echoes of Depravity. You can find this on Amputated Vein Records. I was mildly into this band, but this release was definitely one of the highlights of this last year. Kicking off 2015 with slam and brutal death metal that was just fun, catchy, and just made you want to throw the fuck down, no matter where you were or what time of day it was. When this album kicks in, you are forced into a great time, and you will be headbanging throughout the entirety of this album. It's just simply catchy, and it's just disgustingly well written. Number 17 is Mortal Torment's Cleaver Redemption from Gorehouse Productions. Violent, brutal death metal from Greece that showed that just being simply heavy, just because you want to be or can be, definitely pays off. Very straightforward, no gimmicks, and it's just pure death that will have you breaking your neck whilst listening to such a heavy album. Solid songwriting, just meets ultra violence. It's amazing. Number 16, we have Cranium's Chronicles of Perversion on Comatose Music. It's perverse, obviously. Gore, blood, brutal. Cranium is many, many things, and this album had been played a massive amount of times for me this past year. Something I just simply enjoy. This band's brand of brutal death is just sickening, and it's on a sexual level, which makes things more uncomfortable, but simply just more sadistic. I mean, this album's so good, I had to get a sample of it as an intro to my show, Nice Cans. Number 15, Abyssals, I'm going to mispronounce this, Antikatastasius, Profound Lore Records, death metal with massive sound, layered with black and doom elements that just create a highly tasty feeling of fear, dread, and ultimate demise. This is one hell of a solid album. Just incredibly atmospheric, heavy as hell, and honestly just scary. Very mysterious music, and it's just ultimately interesting to explore. A must listen to, something that no one else had really put out. Number 14, we have Hoth with their album Hive. It was actually an EP, but I'm including EPs in this list. It's an independent release, a free release on Bandcamp from a trio of phenomenal artists who put this on their Bandcamp page one day, and I've just been in love with it ever since. This new act creates just a diverse, progressive, technical death metal sound that is very charming as well as it is dark. This release also often makes me say, Opeth who? As, Hoth just simply puts forth fantastic songwriting in on this. Hive is just simply brilliant. At number 13, we have Gorod's A Maze of Recycled Creeds on Listenable Records. Gorod is one of those technical death metal bands that deserve much more time in the spotlight than they really get. This album was played for months straight in my car, as it's just a great adrenaline starter, and I was often just put into awe listening to their sheer grand technical ability on their instruments. This album is just gripping, and it's fun to listen to, and these songs, every single song on this album is just a good listen. Listen to it immediately. It's good. Number 12, we have Hate Eternal's Infernus, Season of Mist. Hate Eternal, they don't need an introduction. This band has been on a good streak of solid releases for quite some time now, and Infernus is no different. This release is just intimidating. It's impressive. It's just a simply crushing album. Face-melting death metal with each individual song on here just performs so damn well, or each individual musician on here performs so damn well on their instruments. The performance on here is just right starting musicianship, and it shows on every single track. Another solid Hate Eternal release under their belt. Now I want them to tour. Headlining tour would be amazing. Number 11, we have Abhorrent with Intransigence on Willow Tip Records. Technical brutal death metal by a bunch of guys from San Antonio, Texas, and they fucking brought it with this debut release. A no-holds-barred beating out about the neck, head, and face with a steel bat wrapped in barbed wire. Mere words are barely enough to fully describe how good this is. Just listen to this immediately. If you missed out on this release, then you missed out on one of the heaviest death metal records of this year. Enjoy. Now we're going to be running off our top 10. Let me just make sure everything is in order here before I continue. All right, looks like we're good. Number 10, Embodied Torment, Liturgy of Ritual Execution on New Standard Elite. Another massive, brutal death metal debut release. These newcomers are just killing it this year. Embodied Torment begins on our top 10 of 2015, and this is simply just one of the more destructive, brutal death metal releases of 2015. Nothing really came close to this record within this genre, making Embodied Torment the number 1 brutal death metal release of the year, and number 10 overall on death metal, or number 1 on brutal death, and number 10 on death metal in general. Go listen to it now, and you may need to call your therapist afterwards. Number 9, we have Sludge, Dim and Slime-Ridden Kingdoms. It's an independent release, another free Bandcamp submission, another fantastic display of progressive death metal from the Mollusk-themed project. Sludge is not only impressed on a musical level, but also they just give their work away on Bandcamp, which is just respectful, and I appreciate that. These guys work hard, and then just to give it away for free, that's insane. As soon as this band releases a physical copy of their work, though, I mean, it's going to sell quickly. I'm going to buy it. I know tons of fans are out there, even people on Even Metal Sucks actually like this band. This band has slowly grown to become one of the biggest underground acts, and their hard work and slimy songwriting is paying off. Number 8, we have Adversarial's Death, Endless Nothing, and the Black Knife of Nihilism. That's still like the coolest album title of the year, and you can find that on Dark Descent Records. Adversarial's latest album was my first trip down video review lane, and honestly, I couldn't be happier with how that came to be. I wanted something brand new that I could just share and discuss with you guys, and it just so happened to be this freaking awesome album. Simply put, this is just incredibly dark death metal with a huge blackened atmosphere surrounding it, and it just bleeds nihilism and misanthropy. It makes for one kick-ass release. Number 7 is Cattle Decapitation's The Anthropocene Extinction, Metal Blade Records, without bias and without hype, and while using my own judgment, I thought this album was fucking brilliant. The right step towards the right direction after releasing Monolith, something that could have went terribly wrong, and the massive swarm of fans would have turned their backs on the band. However, in this case, we get more of Travis's extreme vocals, Josh Elmore's blackened grind riffing, and the thunderous delivery from both Ingman and McGraw. The performances were equally as just incredible. Everyone put in 100%. Sonically profound music delivery from these guys, and it's just overly catchy as well as it is deadly. Listen with caution. Number 6 is Nile, which should not be unearthed. Nuclear Blast Records. This could have been easily number 1 for me, but I had to put my bias aside and went with my true gut from the professional level. Nile is my favorite band alongside Amon Amarth, so trying to put this on the list somewhere was tough for me. Yes, it's fucking awesome on all levels, and yes, it's heavier than the last 2 albums, and of course, it's just as raw as well as being a death metal masterpiece, but these guys just didn't go outside of what they're being used to. Or they didn't go outside of what they were used to doing. Instead, they channeled their energies and created something that they've been doing for over 20 years. And as a result, this album is a satisfying Nile album that doesn't cater to any era, but to all of them. It's excellent stuff from these guys, and as a longtime Nile fan, I just love it. Number 5, Contrarian Polemic, Willowtip Records, another finely tuned engine of progressive technical death metal with an all-star lineup of fantastic musicians who just brought forth something intriguing and interesting as well as something thoughtful and heavy. Polemic is one of those albums I listened to and just had my mind blown over and over. Fantastic songwriting, over-the-top guttural vocals, placed carefully over wonderfully crafted progressive death, and it just left me melted on the pavement. I've since cannot get enough of this album, and the album's ability to be replayed over and over while still being highly complex and interesting every single time earns the number 5 spot on this list. It's a very well done album. Check them out. Number 4 on this list is Sulfur Aeons, or Ion, I say Aeon, Gateway to the Antisphere. Imperium Productions, the essential Cthulhu worship album of the year. All hail the blackened death metal opus that is Sulfur Aeons, Gateway to the Antisphere. With exquisite songwriting, whirlwind chaos riffing, and hellish vocals, this was played weekly for several months this past year in my on my MP3 player and on my CD player. It's a dark and brooding release. Sulphur Aeon do what Behemoth fans are yearning for after the Satanist, something that is of worship worthy but not overly preachy, and it's just good heavy music praising of the cosmic entity, the Great One. All hail Sulphur Aeon. Now we're going to be rounding off 1, 2, and 3 here. In number 3 we have Veld, DAEMONIC, and the Art of Dantalion. Lacerated Enemy Records. Oh, Veld. Who the hell are you? This is a band of pissed off musicians from Belarus and Poland who have come together to create some of the most fierce death metal musings of this year. And with that comes one of the scariest, most ominous pitch harmonics ever created. Not only is this band fully open with all cylinders ablaze, but they somehow cram so much evil atmosphere within its chaotic song structure that it just makes for one of the coolest sounding records of the year. Not to mention, it's just pure nihilistic chaos and anti-Christian praise, and you gotta love that. Number 2, we have Sarpanatum's Blessed Be My Brothers on Willowtip Records. Much like Nile and Amon Amarth, I enjoy a band that takes a theme or something from ancient culture and mythology and create a mind-boggling experience with it. Thus we have Blessed Be My Brothers by Sarpanatum. Reminding me of an extreme blend of Nile, Immolation, Morbid Angel, Sulphur Aeon, and Hate Eternal. The musicianship on this release is just on master tier. High quality, top-notch stuff. The technicality is respectable, and it's crafted well over the amazing death metal riffing. The drumming is relentless, and the vocals are just a low growl the entire time, yet it fits in perfectly with the music. Sarpanatum is just brilliant on all fronts. They are mad. They a mind-expanding release that shows just how good death metal can truly be with the right amount of creativity, talent, and drive. Now, my number 1 album of the year, something I got early last year and just listened to it the entire goddamn year, Heaving Earth's Denouncing the Holy Throne. Let me repeat that. Number 1 of 2015 is Heaving Earth's Denouncing the Holy Throne. Lava Dome Productions. If you enjoy Morbid Angel, Hate Eternal, and Immolation, then you'll absolutely adore this hellish display of death metal. Heaving Earth showcases what it means to be a death metal band and utilizes their talents to craft such an evil album of massive grandeur. Calling this an essential death metal album is just not even enough. Album of the year or best death metal release, it's just simply not enough. There's so much energy and talent poured into this release. It's so hectic at times, you just lose your place. It's so clever with how it places its melodies within the anti-religious verses. The tone used for solos and leads are beyond stellar. Drumming is a cock tease of high speed, punishing blasts, and outlandish groove that just plays well with the guitars at any given moment. One of the catchiest, most memorable death metal masterpieces I've heard this year, and this is why it earns the number 1 spot for 2015. I love this album, and if you haven't heard it yet, then I highly recommend that you go listen to it right now. This is simply the best thing out this year. Go listen to it on Spotify, go listen to it on YouTube, go find a way to listen to this. I'm pretty sure they have it on their Bandcamp, and then buy it. Buy this album. It's amazing. And there you go. There's my top 25 death metal albums of 2015. Thank you for listening, and all hail 2016. It's going to be an incredible year. And yeah, I appreciate everyone who subscribed this year and all the new fans. And yeah, all right. Oh, and next week I'll have the top 25 black metal albums ready for you. So who knows? You might find something new there as well. Have a good one.